So in terms of our example, so we're welcoming to ENT student again for the discussion on this one. So the radiotherapy and surgery, does they have similar effects in other countries? The patients with more advanced disease or who are averagely older or younger, these are all possible factors that are possible in during discussion of this thing. Okay. So first, during stratification, we are thinking about the sample size, whether may be different to the intended sample. That is one is negative thing. Second one is sample may be similar to the target which we are keeping, and third one is investigator might make into an opinion about that sample. So about that, regarding the surgery and radiotherapy also, they will be thought in that manner. So the second point, if you are discussing, it's not a yes or no decision and may trigger debate among the experts. So it is a decision will be yes or no. So the last point of the first slide, first paragraph, you can see. So this is always, there is always a subjective judgment which depends upon the findings in the other studies. So more general scientific knowledge and what is sometimes called as a feeling for the organism. So feeling for the organism, that is particular patient, you can just keep it like that. Yes or no decision will be there in that only. And the debate may be informed by the study itself, if the study population is diverse enough to explore the consistency of effects in different subgroups within the study. What is the debate, yes or no decision, and then about this feeling of the organism, all these things will be there once if the study population is diverse enough to explore the constancy of effects. So whether reason, what is the effect, that is etiology, whether it is a constantly, because of that only we are getting that, or if not, in that manner you can just understand that. And then different subgroups within the study. Next slide, please.
What measurements will be made? The quality of a study depends on how well the variables measured in the study represent the phenomena of interest. Another concern is how the variables of interest can be measured as precisely, free of random errors, and accurately, free of systemic errors, as possible without making the study unreasonably expensive. It is important to have some understanding about the types of variables that are encountered in epidemiological research and how they can be measured. Any variable can be considered to be one of the two basic types, continuous variables and categorical variables.
As you could see, second point, so variables are very important. So what are the, how the measurements, what measurements will be made? It is one point. So one important point here you have to remember is about the, it should be free of random error, first point, and it should be free of systemic errors. Two things you have to keep in mind. So without making the study unreasonably expensive, if you are having freedom from this random error and systemic error, unreasonably expensive nature will be decreased. And third point is to understand the types of variables encountered in epidemiological research. Any variable can be Hello? Hello? So kindly mute yourself, please. If you are in the class, please don't speak other things. Yeah. So any variable can be considered to be one of the two basic types. So it is continuous variables and categorical variables. So variable classification is by continuous variables and categorical variables. So these two are there even in your SPM textbook, that continuous variables, categorical variables. Next.
This distinction determines the way in which these variables should be measured as well as analyzed. As a general rule, with categorical variables, the analysis will involve a description or comparison of the proportion of studies falling into the various categories. With continuous variables, the descriptions or comparisons are most often presented in terms of average values or medians if the sample is small and the average value is considered to be inappropriate to describe the midpoint of the variable's distribution. Theoretically, continuous variables can take all possible values on continuum along a specific range. Many clinical parameters are continuous.
So as you could see here in this, so they are telling about the variables, that is continuous variables and categorical variables. We'll see the third point first. So continuous variables or comparisons are often presented in terms of average values of medians. So you should say medians or midpoints. Midpoints or medians. You should keep it in mind. And the average value is considered as the midpoint of the variable distribution. That is about the continuous variable, very important in your statistics. And categorical, second point, if you are taking categorical variables, the analysis will involve a description or a comparison of the proportion falling into various categories of various categories. So this categorization is made in this. So categories are found in categorical variable and continuous things are found in continuous variable. As a midpoint, you will take in the continuous variable. So different specific ranges, you can take different things, and many clinical parameters are continuous. So most of the clinical parameters are continuous variables. Next.
Variables such as blood pressure, body weight, body temperature are not restricted to particular values and are not only limited by the accuracy and the precision of the measuring procedures. The units in which a continuous variable is expressed specify a uniform difference along the entire length of the scale. A difference in the blood pressure of 10 mm Hg has the same interpretation irrespective of whether it occurs at the lower or the upper end of the blood pressure scale. Discrete variables can only take certain numerical values, in most cases only integers, whole numbers. If discrete variables has a considerable number of possible values, they can often be treated as if they were continuous.
So continuous variables, categorical variables. That last thing, your last 2 points you take. Discrete variables can take only numerical values. That is like whole numbers or only integers. Most cases it is integers or whole numbers. If discrete variables have a considerable number of possible values, they are treated as continuous variables. So clinically, most of the things are continuous variables. Discrete variables are taken as categorical variables, like whole numbers only. So first 3 points, like you can put the BP, weight, temperature, etc., etc. All these things are measuring based on measuring procedures, and they specify a uniform difference along the entire length of the scale. So difference, that is the difference of BP of 10 mm as interpretation irrespective of whether it occurs at the lower or upper end of the blood pressure scale. So it is a continuous variable. So continuously you have to take, so up and down will be calculated in that. And categorical last 2 points, as we already discussed, are about the description and comparison of the things. They are whole numbers, and if they have many number of values, they can be considered as continuous variables. Next.
Examples of these quasi-continuous variables are counts, such as the number of cigarettes smoked, number of episodes of acute tonsillitis in the last year, or number of days spent in the hospital, or scores in a clinicometric scale such as the 20-item sinonasal outcome test that measures symptom severity of sinonasal condition on a scale with discrete values ranging from 0, no symptoms, to 100, very severe symptoms, or the Epworth sleepiness scales used in patients with obstructive sleep apnea that can take discrete values from 0, no daytime sleepiness, to 24, very severe daytime sleepiness. Strictly speaking, considering scores on the clinimetric scale as continuous is somewhat problematic, as the interpretation of a differences of one unit may vary along the length of the scale. For example, does an increase from 5 to 10 on the Epworth sleepiness scale correspond to an increase from 15 to 20?
Very important here. Quasi-continuous is giving a new word here. Quasi-continuous variables. What are they? Like counts such as cigarette smoked, episodes of acute tonsillitis per year. That is the indication for surgery. Just now only I explained one patient. 7 times in a year you can go for a surgery. Or number of days spent in a hospital. Or this is quasi-continuous. Number 2, the thing which is given is clinimetric scales. Clinimetric scales. Clinimetric scales is like sinonasal outcome test. If 20 items are there in SNOT test, sinonasal outcome test is a clinimetric scale, and also like Epworth sleepiness score. This is very important for sleep apnea. When we deal about sleep apnea, we'll see that Epworth sleepiness score. Epworth sleepiness score, that is from 0 to 24. Excessive daytime sleepiness, whether they are sitting and watching TV, whether they are while in a car, sitting in a car while driving, whether they are getting sleep, all those things are there in this Epworth sleepiness score. So you should have a basic idea of this, just name of this, not very much important, but for you, Epworth sleepiness score, they will be doing it for obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. In that chapter, you will get it in the last part of the paragraph, they will be giving you in the textbook. You can see that. Next, last but one point, if you see, a clinimetric scale, that is a clinical related. Clinimetric scale is continuous scale. Always, you already dealt that it is a continuous scale. So clinimetric, it is a continuous variable, and the 1 unit difference may not be corresponding it directly. Like it's like a logarithm. When you are just increasing, is it double or triple? It's not. So it's almost 1,000 times it is becoming. So you can imagine that. Next.
The phenomena that cannot be measured quantitatively can often be measured by classifying them into categories and then counting the number of subjects that fall within the defined categories. In its simplest form, there are only two categories, such as man, woman, or dead, alive, and these variables are called dichotomous or binary variables. When there are more than two possible categories, the variables are termed poly or multicomatous variables. Polycomatous variables can be further classified into those that are ordered called ordinal variables and those that are not called nominal variables.
So as you could see here, so this continuous variable man or woman, they can be called as simple as that they counting a man or woman. That is two categories only. Two categories are only present. Categories are only present. Whether dead or alive also can be in an example for that. Is called as dichotomous or binary variables. Dichotomous or binary variables. So more than two, if they are present, then they can called as multicotomous. Okay, multicotomous. So multicotomous variables, multicotomous variables, and are polycotomous variables, other names. So they are called as they are just called as nominal ordinal interval ratio. So polycotomous, they can be called as, you will have this in SPM. Okay, they are called as ordinal variables. So nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. All these are variables that are present in a polycotomous study. Okay, polycotomous variables. Next.
Socioeconomic status, ASA grades describing fitness to undergo surgery. The degree of pain are examples of former, and race, martial status, and blood type are example of latter. As a general rule, continuous variables are more informative than categorical variables. It is therefore advisable to use continuous variables as much as possible. For example, body temperature as a continuous variable should be preferred to a categorical variable, dividing the patient into those with a temperature below and above a certain threshold.
So very important. You go back once. Last slide. So polycotomous variables are classified into those that are called as ordinal variables and are not called as nominal variables. So what are ordinal variables is giving examples. You can, next slide. Ordinal variables. Ordinal variables are like you could see ASA grading, American Society of Anesthesiologists grading. They give it the fitness for surgery, ASA grading only. Very important. You will get it clinically. And socioeconomic status and degree of pain. Pain is also the ordinal variable. And for example, nominal variables, it is something related to name. So nominal variables, they are like race, marriage, marriage status, blood type. Blood type, these are all nominal variables. So they are giving as farmer and latter. So ordinal variables are ASA and socioeconomic status, and nominal variables are race, marital, etc., etc. So continuous variables are more informative than categorical. Continuous is related to clinical, as we have already seen. So as much as possible, you go for clinically that continuous variable. So that is like body temperature, as you could see here, dividing the patients into a temperature below and temperature above a threshold. Next.
Good measurements are precise and accurate. There are largely three sources of random and systemic errors. Variability due to the observer, variability due to the subject, variability due to the instrument used. A number of strategies can be followed to increase simultaneously both precision and accuracy of the measurements. First, the measurement procedures should be standardized and clearly described in the study protocol.
So three sources of random and systemic errors. Three sources of random and systemic errors. So these two are types of errors as we already seen. Number one, it is because of the observer. Number two is because of the subject. Number three is because of the instrument. So these are the sources of your errors. Errors that can be possible. So precision and accuracy of the measurements also you should be keeping in mind. You cannot just measure the wrong measurement and then say that. So what are the for accuracy? What do you have to do? Number one is the measurement procedure should be standardized. So standardized and clearly described in the protocol. Next. Second one is the one which is involved in taking the measurement should be trained. So number two is training and monitored in the course of study. Number third one is about should be carefully chosen. The measurement should be carefully chosen. So measurements chosen. For example, in centimeters or in millimeters, you should be telling it properly. Number 4 is calibration. So calibration of the instrument. It is as a gold standard, very important. Instrument should be calibrated. Every time you start a test, you should go for calibration, gold standard. And this is especially essential for devices like weighing scales, thermometer, blood pressure, etc. etc. Calibration is very important. Even for a pure tone audiometry, we go for a calibration daily. Next.
Furthermore, a simple and rather effective approach to increase the measurement precision is to repeat the instrument and to use the mean of 2 or more observations. The latter approach is commonly used in studies measuring blood pressure. An important approach to reduce systemic error is blinding, which conceals information about determinants, or in some cases, outcomes, to the observer or the subjects. This reduces the possibility that the observers or the study subjects distort the overall accuracy of the measurements, consciously or unconsciously.
So best method to increase the precision is to use a mean. So use a mean. So 25 plus 35 by 2. You can just use like that. So 25 plus 35 will become 60 and then by 2 will be 30. Use a mean for precision. That is very important. Second point is you can use it in a blood pressure measurement. For example, we have already dealt about the blood pressure measurement. And important approach to reduce systemic error. So for systemic error, you use the process called as blinding. Blinding is useful. So blinding is systemic error. Blinding is useful. Blinding is a method wherein you can reduce the systemic error. Very important point. So blinding is a method wherein you can reduce the systemic error. Systemic error can be reduced with the help of blinding. So very important point for SPM is blinding. Next, this decreases the overall. This increases the overall accuracy of measurement consciously or unconsciously. Next.
Blinding, however, does not ensure overall accuracy of the measurements, but it may eliminate the differential bias that affects one study group more than another. Blinding is especially relevant for measurements that incorporate some subjective judgment. For example, a study comparing early surgery with watchful waiting for glue ear in preschool children used a tester of language development who was unaware of what treatment the children had received.
So you should keep it in important that does not overall accuracy decreased by this blinding. So you can eliminate the differential bias for one study that group than other one. Blinding is especially relevant for measurements of incorporating some subjective judgment. So whether you have to do surgery for OME or not, and waitful watching of the glue ear will helpful. Glue ear you can operate immediately, or you can wait for 6 weeks for giving antibiotics and mucolitis, etc., etc. All these things can be measured by blinding. So one group is blinding and another group non-blinded. You can get the results. Next.
How will the results be analyzed? The main statistical methods that are going to be used to analyze the results should be defined in the study protocol. Choosing the statistical methods after the results have become available will increase the likelihood of finding associations between determinants and outcome on the basis of chance alone. An important element of the analysis plan is the description of how the outcome variable is going to be analyzed.
So analysis of the results is very important. So statistical methods you should be taking. So that sometimes you will be putting the p-value, etc., whatever you read in SPM, and choosing the statistical methods after results have become available will increase the likelihood of finding associations between the determinants and outcome. So what you should know, statistical method is useful for finding the link between determinants and outcome. So we have been so described